Welcome back everyone. Today, we're continuing with the next part of this series, called What If Goku Remembered the Saiyans? My name is Ash. Please, for me, drop a like and subscribe to the page. Also leave your comments down below. With that, let's begin. The sun hung low over the lookout, casting long shadows across the platform. As the Z warriors gathered for a moment none of them were truly ready for, a breeze drifted through the air, carrying with it the unspoken emotions of everyone present. Bulma stepped forward, her eyes glistening as she embraced her future son. "I'm going to miss you, son," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. She pulled away and turned to Celia, her gaze softening as she placed a hand on the Saiyan princess's slightly swollen belly. "Take care of him for me." Celia, her dark eyes filled with determination, gave a reassuring nod. "I will," she promised. Bardock, standing tall with his arms crossed, studied his older but younger brother with a critical eye. "Are you sure you don't want any help?" he asked, his voice gruff yet laced with concern. "If Dad or I went back with you, we could wipe out those androids in no time." Trunks shook his head, offering a confident smirk. "I'll be fine," he assured them. "I'm a lot stronger now, thanks to you and Father." Raditz cleared his throat loudly, crossing his arms. Trunks chuckled awkwardly. "Oh, and of course, training with Uncle Raditz." Raditz smirked, nodding in approval. Trunks then turned to Vegeta, who stood slightly apart from the group, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Chi-Chi clung to his side, her expression unreadable. Trunks hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Take care, Vegeta." Vegeta's muscles tensed, his grip tightening into a fist. In an instant, his hand shot up, gathering energy as his glare darkened. "I should kill you for what you did to my daughter," he snarled, his teeth clenched. Celia gasped and rushed forward, pressing a quick kiss to her father's cheek. "Oh, Daddy, be nice." Vegeta exhaled sharply, his posture relaxing, just a little. His eyes flicked back to Trunks, still burning with warning. "If you hurt her, I will hunt you down," he said, his voice deadly serious. Trunks straightened, his hand instinctively pulling Celia closer by the waist. "I won't hurt her," he said with quiet conviction. Celia gave her mate a warm smile before turning to the others. "We should get going, darling." Trunks nodded, and together they walked toward the time machine. Before stepping inside, they turned back to their gathered friends and family one last time. "Take care of yourselves," Celia said. Chi-Chi stepped forward, pulling her daughter into a tight embrace. "You too, sweetheart," she whispered. As the two teenagers boarded the time machine, the glass dome slowly lowered over them. With a hum of energy, the machine lifted into the sky, rising higher and higher until, with a blinding flash of light, it vanished. Far away, on King Kai's planet, Nappa was busy throwing rapid punches and kicks, moving through the air with a discipline he hadn't possessed in life. His massive frame moved with surprising agility as he trained relentlessly. King Kai, watching him from the sidelines, finally spoke up. "Nappa." Nappa didn't stop, continuing to launch a barrage of strikes into the empty air. "What?" he grunted. King Kai adjusted his sunglasses and folded his arms. "There's an otherworld tournament coming up on the Grand Kai's planet. It'd be a good chance to test all that power you've been working on." That caught Nappa's attention. He finally halted, standing up straight. A slow grin spread across his face as he cracked his knuckles. "A tournament, huh?" He let out a low chuckle. "It's been a while since I had a real fight. When do we leave?" When Nappa and King Kai arrived at Grand Kai's planet, the energy in the air was electric with anticipation. Fighters from across the universe had gathered, each one exuding their own unique power. A voice sneered from behind them. "This is your so-called prize fighter?" Nappa turned to see West Kai, a short, purple-skinned deity with a glass monocle over one eye. The smug look on his face made Nappa's eyebrow twitch. West Kai continued, gesturing toward his own fighter. "He's no match for my pick-on." King Kai huffed. "He is too, West Kai." A deep, smooth voice cut through the tension. "We'll see in the tournament." They all turned to see Grand Kai, a tall, older-looking man with long gray hair, a beard, and sunglasses. His rockstar-style outfit made him look like he had just stepped off a concert stage. King Kai immediately straightened. "Grand Kai." He and the others quickly bowed, but Grand Kai simply waved a hand. Yeah, formalities and all that. But before we get to the tournament, I need to send Pikkon to handle a little problem." He scratched his chin, his expression serious. Seems some guy named Cell is causing trouble down in HFIL. Nappa's grin faded. His fists clenched at the mention of that name. Cell? He repeated. That's not good. You'll need help. West Kai scoffed. What do you know about it? Nappa turned toward him, his eyes narrowing. I watched my friends fight Cell when I was here in Otherworld, he explained. He's insanely powerful. I've been training non-stop just to make sure I could take on someone like that. Grand Kai stroked his beard. Yeah, and get this. He's teamed up with some guy named Frieza. Pecan gave a small nod before rising into the air. He was already preparing to leave, but Nappa stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. If Frieza's involved, I'm definitely coming. King Kai held up a hand. Nappa, you weren't asked to go. He turned toward Grand Kai. I'm sure you would have called for him if you wanted him to go. But Grand Kai simply smirked. Nah, let him go. Pecan might actually need help on this one. Nappa grinned. Damn right he will. Hell, or HFIL, was in ruins. Black smoke rose from burning structures, and the very ground trembled under the weight of destruction. The air crackled with dark energy. Nappa and Pecan hovered above the chaos, taking it all in. Nappa whistled. Man, this place is trashed. Then again, I guess that's why it's hell. A voice rang out in the distance. Where's the exit to this place? Nappa turned his head just in time to see Cell, his biomechanical form still exuding a terrifying aura, gripping a blue ogre by the throat. The ogre struggled, his eyes wide with terror. I don't know, the ogre stammered. Cell's patience snapped. With a roar, he hurled the poor creature toward a field of jagged spikes. Before impact, Pecan blurred into motion, catching the ogre effortlessly and setting him down. That's enough, he declared, his voice calm but firm. Nearby, Frieza lifted his head, his lips curling into a sneer as his eyes locked onto Nappa. Well, if it isn't one of my monkeys. His tone dripped with disdain. I was wondering when you would finally die and end up in hell. Nappa's grin widened as he cracked his neck. I'm not the same man you used to boss around, Frieza. His aura flared. I'm here to stop you. Frieza chuckled darkly. Get him, boys. The Ginyu Force wasted no time, charging forward, but they didn't stand a chance. Nappa dodged their attacks effortlessly, appearing behind Captain Ginyu in a flash, with a brutal knee to the back, followed by a sharp chop to the neck. Ginyu collapsed. Nappa smirked, stepping forward. Anyone else want some? The remaining Ginyu Force members stood frozen in shock. Their leader, Captain Ginyu, had been defeated in an instant. Their confidence crumbled as they exchanged nervous glances. They had seen firsthand what happened to warriors who picked fights they couldn't win. One by one, they took a step back, silently deciding it wasn't worth it. Frieza, watching the display, narrowed his eyes. His tail twitched, his frustration barely concealed. How did you get so strong? He demanded, his voice laced with irritation. Nappa crossed his arms, smirking. I'm not even trying. His gaze hardened. You're next. Frieza's face twisted in rage. The very idea that a former underling, a disposable warrior, would dare challenge him was beyond insulting. With a snarl, Frieza launched forward, his fist glowing with energy as he aimed straight for Nappa's face. But his attack met nothing but air. Frieza's eyes widened in shock. Nappa had vanished. Before he could react, a powerful presence appeared behind him. The moment Frieza turned, his blood ran cold. Nappa stood there, bathed in golden energy, his eyes now a deadly teal, a color that triggered buried memories of fear. It was the same Super Saiyan glow that had haunted Frieza ever since planet Namek, but something was different. Nappa's hair hadn't changed. It remained the same thick black mane, but his aura crackled with that unmistakable energy. Frieza barely had time to process what he was seeing before wham! Nappa's fist came crashing down onto the top of Frieza's head with bone-shattering force. The impact sent Frieza rocketing toward the ground, his body slamming into the dirt with a thunderous explosion. The force of the blow tore through the battlefield, leaving a massive crater in its wake. Dust and debris filled the air. A few seconds later, Frieza crawled out of the crater, his once pristine form now battered and bruised. His hands trembled as he pushed himself up, his face contorted in rage. I'll kill you! He shrieked. Before he could act, Nappa appeared right in front of him. In one swift movement, Nappa's massive hand wrapped around Frieza's throat, lifting him off the ground like a rag doll. You just don't know when to quit, do you? Nappa growled, his grip tightening. Frieza choked, his hands clawing at Nappa's fingers. His tail lashed violently, but he was completely helpless. A slow, sinister laugh echoed through the battlefield. "That's enough," a deep voice said. Nappa turned his head slightly to see Cell, standing with his arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with amusement. "Finally," Cell chuckled. "Someone put that annoying lizard in his place." Nappa let out a sharp breath, his fingers loosening. He tossed Frieza aside, sending him crashing to the ground with a dull thud. Cell wasted no time. With a flicker of movement, he charged straight at Nappa. But before he could land a blow, a massive energy blast streaked through the sky, colliding with Cell mid-charge. The sudden attack sent him spiraling backward, crashing into a jagged row of spikes. Picken hovered above, lowering his outstretched hand. "Not so fast," Cell groaned, shaking off the impact. His eyes burned with frustration. He had been so focused on Nappa, he had forgotten about Pickon, and he had paid for it. Before he could recover, Nappa seized the opportunity. Throwing his head back, he inhaled deeply, his chest expanding. Then, with a deafening roar, a blazing golden mouth blast erupted from Nappa's lips, streaking towards Cell with devastating force. Cell crossed his arms, bracing for the blast. It wouldn't kill him, but it would hurt. But Nappa's attack was only a distraction. Picken flashed behind Cell. Before the android could react, Picken locked him into a tight body hold. Cell struggled, his muscles bulging as he tried to break free, but Piccon's grip was like iron. For the first time, Cell felt trapped. His frustration deepened. Ever since his fight with Bardock, something had changed. His monster form was gone. He had retained his perfect form in death, but without his monstrous evolution, his power had plateaued, and now he was losing. Nappa stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. A slow grin spread across his face. With a brutal right hook, he slammed his fist into Cell's jaw. Cell spat blood, his vision blurring. He let out a weak chuckle. All right, he muttered. "I give up." Nappa's eyes narrowed. That was almost too easy. His tone was skeptical. "What's the catch?" Cell smirked, despite his bloodied mouth. "No catch. I know when I'm beaten." His voice turned dark. "But as soon as I get my monster form back, you're all dead. I'll rule the universe." Nappa rolled his eyes. Yeah, keep dreaming." Hours later, the villains were secured in their cells. The uprising was over. Nappa and Pickon stood side by side, watching the final prisoners being locked away. Nappa stretched, rolling his neck. "Well, looks like you could handle things after all," he admitted. Pickon smirked. "You were a good distraction." Nappa grunted. Yeah, I'll admit it. Cell was tougher than I expected." He turned away. "Let's head back to Grand Kai and report." But just as they turned to leave, "Wait!" Nappa stopped mid-step, his body going still. That voice. He turned around, and his eyes widened. Standing there was a Saiyan warrior with wild, spiky hair and battle-worn scars. He looked just like Kakarot, but rougher, more hardened. Nappa's breath caught in his throat. Bardock. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Bardock stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "It's been a long time." Nappa nodded slowly. "Yeah, it has." Bardock studied him for a moment before speaking. "I heard what you did. You saved my grandson. At the cost of your own life." His voice softened slightly. "I just wanted to say thank you." Nappa blinked. Of all the things Bardock could have said, he never expected that. He forced a smirk. No problem. But deep down, something about those words meant more to him than he wanted to admit. Days passed. The Otherworld tournament was in full swing. Nappa stood in the center of the grand arena, staring across the ring at his final opponent, Pickon. The crowd roared, the anticipation electrifying. The announcer, a short green creature with a mushroom-shaped head, raised his microphone. "This is it, folks. The final match. North Quadrant's warrior Nappa, West Quadrant's undefeated champion Pickon. Who will win?" The Grand Kai struck the gong. Nappa lunged forward in Super Saiyan, fists blazing. The fight had begun. High above the arena, King Kai winced as he watched the fight unfold. He had to admit, Pickon was an extraordinary fighter. His movements were precise, his power was overwhelming, and his speed was almost too much to follow. King Kai swallowed nervously. Could Nappa actually win this? Nappa had come a long way since his days as a ruthless soldier under Frieza. He had trained, evolved, and pushed himself past his former limits. But he still wasn't the strongest warrior in the universe. If only Kakarot had died in the Cell Games, King Kai thought. If Goku had been here, He could have fought on his behalf and finally shown up that arrogant Weskai. But this was Nappa's fight now. Back in the ring, Nappa blasted off the ground, rocketing toward Pikkon with a powerful punch aimed straight at his face. But just before impact, Pikkon vanished. Nappa's fist hit nothing but air. A split second later, a shadow loomed behind him. Wham! Pikkon's fist shot toward Nappa's head, aiming for a devastating strike, but Nappa reacted just in time. He brought his arm up, blocking the attack, absorbing the force. He gritted his teeth, planting his feet as the impact sent vibrations through his bones. Not bad. Without hesitation, Nappa countered, twisting his body and sending a powerful kick straight toward Pikkon's ribs. But Pikkon caught it. The Green Warrior's grip was ironclad, his fingers locking around Nappa's ankle like a vice. With a loud grunt, Pikkon swung Nappa's massive body around like a rag doll and then hurled him high into the air. Nappa barely had time to react before Pikkon was already above him, a glowing energy blast forming in his palms. "Take this!" Pikkon shouted as he unleashed the attack. A massive golden energy wave shot downward, engulfing Nappa in a fiery explosion. The sheer force of the blast shook the entire ring, temporarily blinding the spectators with its intensity. Dust and smoke filled the sky, obscuring everything. For a moment, there was silence. Then, as the dust settled, Nappa was gone. Pikkon's eyes narrowed. Where is he? He scanned the battlefield, his senses on high alert. And then, boom! A sharp knee crashed into Pikkon's spine from behind. His eyes widened in shock as he plummeted downward, smashing into the ground with a deafening impact. The arena floor shattered beneath him, forming a deep crater. For a few seconds, Pikkon didn't move. Then, slowly, he pushed himself up, brushing a trickle of blood from his mouth. His expression remained calm, but there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "I'm impressed," he admitted, rolling his shoulders. "You're stronger than I thought." With a swift motion, Pikkon reached up and removed his outer robe and turban. He bundled them together and tossed them toward Nappa. The fabric landed with a heavy thud, creating a noticeable dent in the ring. Nappa's eyes widened slightly. "That's just his clothes?" Pikkon exhaled sharply. "Now this fight will end quickly." And before Nappa could react, Pikkon vanished. Nappa's eyes darted across the battlefield, searching for his opponent. Then, at the very edge of the ring, he spotted him. Without wasting a second, Nappa fired a massive energy blast, aiming directly at the Green Warrior. But Pikkon was too fast. He zigzagged effortlessly, dodging the attacks with pinpoint precision. Nappa's frustration grew. He launched blast after blast, trying to pin him down, but Pikkon was always a step ahead. Suddenly, a voice echoed from above. "You're strong," Pikkon said, "but you're no match for me. You disappoint me." Nappa gritted his teeth as he spotted Pikkon hovering high above the ring, his energy rising. "I'm ending this fight." With a sudden scream, Pikkon's entire body began to spin. The air around him twisted, swirling violently as a powerful tornado formed, growing larger and larger by the second. "Hyper tornado attack!" Pikkon declared, releasing the raging storm toward Nappa. Before he could react, the cyclone swallowed him whole. Inside the tornado, Nappa was completely trapped. The winds tore at his body, slicing through his clothes and skin like invisible blades. He clenched his fists, gritting his teeth against the pain. "I've got to get out of this," he growled under his breath. Above, Pikkon shook his head. "Just give up," he said. "You can't win." Inside the vortex, Nappa winced as the Super Kaioken flickered and faded. His body had reached its limit. He had to admit it. Pikkon was stronger than him. But then, his Saiyan pride wouldn't let him quit. Even as the energy ripped at his skin, his mind flashed back to all the times he had failed before. He had always been second best. Vegeta had always been stronger. On Earth, Kakarot had surpassed him with ease. In the fight against Frieza, he had been helpless. When the androids attacked, he had been given a second chance. But still, he had been forced to sacrifice himself for someone stronger. Even in Hell, he had followed Pikkon to fight Cell. And once again, Pikkon had matched Cell's power while he had lagged behind. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. All the emotions hit him like a freight train, swelling inside him until he couldn't hold them back anymore. Then, something snapped. "I won't be defeated again!" A surge of power erupted from within Nappa's body. His golden aura flared wildly, pushing against the tornado's force. Then, suddenly, boom! A burst of energy exploded outward, shattering the hyper tornado completely. As the storm dissipated, lightning crackled around Nappa's body. His muscles bulked slightly, his veins pulsing with power. He was breathing heavily, but his eyes burned with unyielding determination. Pickens stared at him, unfazed. "I've never fought someone quite as strong as you before," he admitted. "But you still won't win." His body tensed, gathering energy for one final attack. "This will finish you." Pecan spun in place, his arms locking together. A fiery aura ignited around him, spiraling violently. Thunderblast attack! With a powerful thrust, he hurled a massive energy wave toward Nappa. The attack shot forward, shaking the entire arena as it closed in. Nappa didn't move. The attack struck him head on. A deafening explosion shook the stadium. The dust cleared, and Nappa stood there, unmoved. He hadn't even flinched. Pecan's eyes widened in shock. "How?" he muttered, disbelief creeping into his voice. Outside the ring, the four Kais stared in stunned silence. The battlefield was still crackling with residual energy from the clash between Nappa and Pecan, but it wasn't the destruction that had them speechless. It was the sign's sudden transformation. Weskai's mouth hung open, his monocle slipping slightly, as he tried to make sense of what he was witnessing. "What's going on?" he demanded, his voice a mixture of disbelief and frustration. King Kai adjusted his sunglasses, still trying to process it himself. "Nappa has ascended." East Kai arched an eyebrow. "Ascended?" King Kai nodded, his expression one of awe. "He's gone beyond Super Saiyan." South Kai folded his arms, his brow furrowed. "He's only the third one to ever do so, right?" King Kai sighed. "That's right. Only 2 others have reached this level before him." Weskai's curiosity got the better of him. "Who?" King Kai hesitated for a moment before answering. 2 other warriors from Earth. It happened about 6 months ago in a battle there. But here's the kicker. They're still alive. The 4 Kais exchanged shocked glances. "You're saying there are mortals out there that powerful without training for centuries?" East Kai asked, his voice barely above a whisper. King Kai nodded grimly. "Yes, and here's the real shocker. I've only been training Nappa for about a year, on and off." The silence that followed was palpable. The Kais had lived for millennia, overseeing warriors and battles across countless galaxies. The idea that mortals, warriors who had barely lived a fraction of their lifespan, could reach such power was unfathomable. Back in the ring, Pecan had regained his composure. His breathing had steadied, his sharp eyes locking onto Nappa. He clenched his fists. "Let's try this again. That must have been a fluke." He spun, his body twisting with fluid precision. His hands came together, and once again, a fierce golden energy erupted from his palms. "Thunderblast attack!" The powerful beam screamed toward Nappa, illuminating the battlefield as it closed in. But this time, Nappa didn't even move. At the very last second, with effortless ease, he backhanded the energy blast away like it was nothing more than a pesky insect. The redirected blast shot upward, hurtling toward one of the moons that orbited Grand Kai's planet. A heartbeat later, boom! The moon exploded into dust, its remains scattering across the starry sky. The entire audience fell dead silent. Pecan's eyes widened in shock. That was his strongest attack, and Nappa had swatted it away without a second thought. Realizing that long-range attacks were useless, Pecan charged forward. His movements were wild, fast, and relentless. His fists and legs a blur as he unleashed a furious assault on Nappa. But the Saiyan dodged every single attack. Not a single punch landed. Not a single kick connected. Nappa's movements were fluid, instinctual, as if he had surpassed the need to think. He weaved around Pecan's attacks effortlessly, his smirk growing wider with every passing second. Finally, he struck. His massive hand shot out, seizing Pecan's wrist in a grip so tight it felt like steel wrapped around his bones. Pecan's breath hitched. He couldn't move. Nappa's smirk deepened. "Not so fast." Before Pecan could react, Nappa's knee drove into his gut, sending him flying across the ring like a missile. But he wasn't done yet. In a flash, Nappa vanished, reappearing behind the airborne Pecan. With both fists clenched together, he hammered them down onto the back of Pecan's head, sending the Green Warrior crashing into the ground outside the ring. The arena trembled from the force. A deep crater formed where Pecan landed. His body sprawled out, motionless. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, "Nappa is the winner," the little green announcer, still holding his microphone, shouted the results to the crowd. The entire stadium erupted into cheers. The golden glow around Nappa faded, his power receding as he took a deep breath, his body relaxing. He looked down at Pikkon, who was still lying in the crater, and without hesitation, extended his hand. Pikkon stared at him for a moment before finally accepting it. With a firm grip, Nappa pulled him back to his feet. For a moment, they just stood there, looking at each other. "That was a good fight," Nappa admitted, his smirk returning. Pikkon wiped a bit of blood from his mouth. "Were you toying with me the whole time?" Nappa shook his head. I didn't even know I could bring out that much power." He paused, crossing his arms. "But when you fired that third thunder blast, something inside me just snapped." Pikkon exhaled slowly, nodding. "I see." Before either of them could say another word, a slow clap echoed across the stadium. They both turned to see Grand Kai strolling toward them, his trademark sunglasses reflecting the bright arena lights. Well, that was quite a fight," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "Nappa, you've earned your free lesson with me." The crowd cheered even louder, the energy in the air electric. But then, Grand Kai raised a hand. "Boot! There's just one little problem." Nappa blinked. "What?" Grand Kai chuckled. "My schedule's kind of packed, you know? You won't be getting that lesson for, maybe 100 years or so." Nappa raised an eyebrow. 100 years? Grand Kai shrugged. "Hey, what's a century when you've got eternity, huh?" Nappa crossed his arms but smirked. "That's fine. I've got nothing but time." As Grand Kai... And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.